crap. Good afternoon, friends. I'd like to welcome you today to What's in Tegan's Storage Locker. It's the show that dares to ask the question, just what is in my storage locker? The answer today, well, friend, the answer is comic books. I grab a fistful of comic books from around the room. We look through them on the camera here, hopefully for your entertainment. I have been trying to run down the little mister for a considerable amount of time. I've even tried to record a couple times, but he keeps coming back. Maybe now he's eating, so maybe now he'll go lay down for a while. We'll see. I guess we're just going to find out. So the first thing I'd like to do today is to point you in the direction of the Patreon real quick. If you like what I do, if you appreciate it, if you want to see me do more of it, if you like any of my writing, that's where you go. I've got tons of stuff there to download. But let's get on with the show. Look through this issue of Uncle Scrooge Adventures from March 1996. So that means this hit probably very beginning of 1996. The twilight of the American newsstand as a venue for comic books. And Gladstone, who still had the license, they were doing everything they could to keep these guys on the stands. They did something, and this one of the reasons why I grabbed this specific issue, which I don't necessarily know even what's in it, but one of the things I wanted to point out to you since I had the comic in my hand, something I didn't get to mention when we did the Uncle Scrooge series on the Tech Talk. Around this time, Gladstone did something that I've never seen another comic book company do. It's probably been done, but if it has, I don't know. What they did in the mid-90s is they switched their cover stock to, I really think it feels very much like the interior stock of the comic. It doesn't feel that much different at all. And it was just straight up a cost-cutting measure. And so it feels weird in your hand. It feels like you're holding a comic that is missing a cover. But no, it's not missing a cover. It was just printed this way because it wanted to keep the price. In 1996, it wanted to keep its price down to $1.50. That's actually a pretty good price for the market at that time. Everything else, I think, Marvel and DC were up to $1.95 by then, at least for parts of the line. So, for a package that would still be available on what places still sold comic books to the general public, they wanted to have a cheap enough package, which by, 1996, $1.50 was not as cheap as Untold Tales of Spider-Man, which was 99 cents, but the funny thing about Untold Tales of Spider-Man is that wasn't 99 cents on the newsstand. On the newsstand, they bundled it with another of their 99-cent books, so they had a $2 package, because otherwise the sentiment, I believe, was news agents didn't want to deal with a product that cost half of what the rest of the line did. But Disney, I think, the math was a little bit different. They just wanted to keep the product that they wanted to print in as many different stores as they could at a good price. And, I got a lot of respect for the Gladstone people. They published a lot of, their early run of Disney comics made me the comic book reader that I am, shaped my tastes elementally. And they lost the license in the early 90s, and then they got it back. And, certainly I don't think the second run is maybe quite as revelatory as that first run of Gladstone books, which was really only like 3 or 4 years, front to back. That was an excellent comic book line. This is a decent comic book line. They have to put some outside ads in. but they're still flogging the Uncle Scrooge, or the Karl Barks libraries with all the Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck stories that he did. This is back when all of the Duck reprints, because this stuff, they always had a good trade program. See, I had barely started talking, and he decides it's time to make a run for that front window. He has it in for that front window. He wants to destroy those Venetian blinds with a diabolical lust, I swear to you. What is so fascinating about those blinds? What was I saying? Now, Gladstone had a pretty forward-thinking trade program for the era, because they had an organized trade program years before really anyone else, certainly on that scale for what was kind of an independent publisher, even though they were a Disney licensor. Their problem was they were really stuck on the album format, which is European adoption, I think, more or less the same dimensions as the old Marvel graphic novels, which also more resembled the European album format, meaning it's a slightly larger book. It's got a square-bound spine, but it's overall thinner. And that just did not end up being a format that the market embraced at all, considering how popular it was in the 80s. Even, it just didn't linger. People don't really do books. Or I should say they didn't used to. Album format is coming a little bit back into vogue for new work. But as far as a reprint program, you know, they put the work in print. And that was enough, I think, for the people who wanted it. But like I say, now I think one of the things that Fantagraphics does unimpeachably, unambiguously well is their Disney reprint books. Their Karl Barks, their Floyd Gottfredson, their Don Rosa. And I'm hoping they get through Al Taliaferro, Donald Duck. I'm really hoping. Right now they're still reprinting some earlier volumes that were put out with early Taliaferro strips. But Taliaferro did so much Donald Duck. I've never seen just about any of it except for, you know, the scant bits that they printed here and there in the Gladstone books. Anyway, so the front cover art by Romano Scarpa. I want to say this is just a panel detail, because they were doing that occasionally. They were putting panel details or stock art on the covers because they were cutting costs. But they were still bringing, you know, the material. Story and art by Romano Scarpa, originally published in Topolino, 292 to 293 in July 2nd through the 9th, 1961. So it's a story with some historical provenance, translated by Fabio Guiducci, American script by David Gerstein, colored by Scott Rockwell. So it's an Italian duck story from the early 1960s. Well, that's interesting. Of course, very much on model. Now, some of the European stuff, I'm not an expert in the modern European duck artists. Some of the stuff actually gets pretty decently off model, considering, you know, you go back and look at certainly any of the Del4 color stories that Barks did and drew, and you can see just how stultifyingly on model literally everything is. And Barks, of course, is 100% on model, but he doesn't make it seem like a straitjacket. Oh, he's an animator. He was an animator. That's what he knew how to do. All right, so it looks to me like we've got a case of the Beagle Boys doing something or other. I'm not paying any attention. They're in another country. They're ethnic caricatures here. Oh, we're just not seeing. Well, there's someone, you know, reading a story from 1961. But this was still on the stands in 1996. So, And the lettering around this time, it really, you can tell they got Klein to do the letters for the Don Rosa Life and Times, and Klein leaves the next issue, and you can tell there's a significant difference. So, you know, for $1.50, an Italian Uncle Scrooge story, sure. That wasn't that bad a deal by the time, because you can see this is nice, very competent stuff. Interesting to see an example of what the rest of the world was getting, because I assure you, this comic book sold a great many copies in Italian when it was first published. They love the ducks in Europe. They love the ducks in Europe so much more than they love them here. So much more. And they still do. There's still tons of European work, new European work with the duck characters, and Mickey Mouse for that matter, that come out every year. And it's only been very recently that Fantagraphics, again, has started to dip their toe into putting some of that work out. And I'm not really versed in it at all. You know, I have only read the Scarpa that ended up in the pages of Gladstone. I'm not that hardcore into the ducks. Yep, there they are. They're doing something. This is a nice sequence with carrying bales of hay with a truck. Try to fool someone, I bet. Oh, yeah, they're ersatz bricks. I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing something nasty because they're the Beagle Boys. Oh, okay, so Scrooge is looking for platinum, and they're trying to mess up my papyrus. That papyrus tricked me. I've been had. There's no doggone platinum here at all. Nothing but gold. Gold. Yeah, it's nowhere near as valuable as priceless platinum, and that's decent ending for an Uncle Scrooge story right there. What's going on in this last page? Last page looks like suddenly they're going from a photocopy. That's weird. That's weird. Maybe they, I don't know. Did they have to blow that up from a half page? I don't know. So what's this? This two-page gag was originally published as a black and white framing sequence on the inside, front, and back covers of Walt Disney's album 4-Color 586, September 54. So this was originally published in one of the Duck specials that Dell put out in 1954, which was quite an interesting year for the comic book industry, but really a high water mark for Disney Comics, because that was right at the height of Carl Barks. All right, and a Kit Kat ad. So that's the package with the same paper cover. I'm sure there's a technical term for that, but definitely interesting. Still, you know, I was buying the books. If you put an Uncle Scrooge comic book in front of me, I will buy it. Dollars to donuts. But whenever I come across them in the boxes, they feel weird. They feel, you know, floppy and insubstantial in your hand. All right, what's next? Oh, how about an issue of Batman from the 90s, from May 96. So this was coming out late winter 1996. It's the same few months as that issue of Uncle Scrooge. You can tell I took a pile from the same section of the box there. Now, this is the 50th issue of Batman Shadow of the Bat. We've read, I think, at least one issue of Shadow of the Bat before. It was basically, I think, the whole run, at least the first volume. I don't know if they brought the title back since then. But basically, the whole run was Alan Grant. He had a really, really well-received run on Detective Comics around the turn of the decade. And his reward after they moved him off of Detective was he basically had his own Batman book. And it was the fourth ongoing Batman. The market was fairly easily able to metabolize there being 4 ongoing Batman books. And if you want to see how we got into the mess we're in now, that's how it starts. Batman sells. Sometimes nothing but Batman sells. So this is the 50th issue, so it doesn't have a single artist. It has a bunch of artists, a stellar array of artists. But they're all artists that he's worked with so far on the series. Brett Blevins, one of my favorites. I think I've gone on about Blevins in the past. Norm Breyfogle, Vince Giorano, who I've come around on. Barry Kitson, who I loved. I think he was kind of profoundly miscast on Batman, to be honest with you. He did a bunch of the Azrael book, but I always like his work anytime it shows up. And Dave Taylor with Rob McCarthy and Rob Lee as inkers. Pamela Rambeau as colorist. Already have a separate computers separator, Android Images. Carl Critchlow, cover painter. Nice cover. And here's an ad for Kingdom Come, which would go on to be quite a significant release. Gorgeous book. It's got a story you can talk about at least. It's not a patch, I think, on Marvel's or Earth X, which is the two books it's most likely to be compared to, at least writing-wise. Like I say, it's worth flipping through it just because it looks nice. So, we're starting off with some Breyfogle Batman. He was certainly one of the best to ever do it. Batman's fighting some people. Oh, and a chemical company. Man, lots of chemical companies in Gotham. Look at how nice this reads. It's just Batman taking down some goons in a factory. He gets to the corner of the wall. You! Who is it? Oh, and they were still selling these. I guess they must have really overprinted them because they printed these separate hardcovers of Fighting American and Boys Ranch, the two Simon Kirby series from the 1950s. They put these out in like 1989, and I wanted them. I had the money in my hand at a WonderCon a few years later, and for some reason, I guess I just got distracted, or I saw something else, or I bought a box of stupid trading cards or something. But, the two, not the very last, because they did a couple smaller things together in the 70s, but certainly the last real, last work from the, mature Simon and Kirby team, I think, both from 52 or 53. And here's the comic book makers, Joe Simon with Jim Simon. Never seen a copy of that. I want to get that if I run across it in a used bookstore someday. They're still flogging Batman Forever, which, as I think I've had ample opportunity to point out, was an immensely popular movie, despite being only a deeply mediocre movie, albeit with some very interesting aspects. Batman and Robin, I think that is a genuinely good movie. It's certainly more interesting in many respects than the Batman movies they made in the years since. So who did he see? Oh, Clayface, that's who we saw. So he fights Clayface for a page, and then there's an explosion. Very, very classic. Batman turning to be shocked. Very classic Neil Adams composition there. And here's Scarface, who was a Grant character. Oh, and I think we've switched over to Brett Blevins, who draws a lanky Batman, but he draws a lanky everyone just about. Oh, this looks nice. I don't think I had this one, but they were putting out a number of nice... I think we looked at a Superman gallery at some point. I didn't have them all by any means, but they were fun to pick up because they'd usually get good people to do them. The world's most fearsome villains, envisioned by D. Alexander Gregory, Rebecca Guay, John Hanley, Ray Lago, Cliff Nielsen, Bill Sienkiewicz, John K. Snyder III, Tom Taggart, Josh Van Fleet, Matt Wagner. So some really stellar names there. That's a nice Lex Luthor piece just on the ad. Yeah, nice stuff. If you see those gallery books, they usually have at least a few pieces in it to justify the expense. If you run across one, in a back issue bin. And already, this is 96, they have gotten the message that this is the one new book coming out of the 0-month promotion that really had legs. And certainly, Starman was one of the defining books for the company for this entire decade. Without Starman, ultimately you don't get Jeff Johns on JSA. Like, there's a straight line. And that's amazing. This book definitely had coattails. And this character's never come back. He rode off into the sunset. He may have appeared a couple times for something or other, but he has stayed retired. So kudos to them for that. I'm a little bit afraid to go back and do a reread because I read the first half year of it a while back, and there were a couple of sour notes that I don't remember hearing at the time. But so I've been a little bit wary about reading the rest of the run. But I don't really remember like the space story. That just went on, it seemed. We've looked at some of the later, like the Grand Guignol story that lasted the length of a presidential administration, it felt like. And here's Urano, as I was saying. This is the tally man who was a weird... I think Alan Grant was the only guy to ever use him, but he had this really interesting visual. Like I say, it looks very much like someone's trying to do a Kevin O'Neill pastiche, which, considering this is Alan Grant writing, that makes sense as a referent. And here's an ad for closing out the first year, the John Byrne Wonder Woman. And this was a fun storyline. She's fighting, I think, CGI clones of Barry Allen, Hal Jordan, and I think this is also where she fights Doomsday, which is a pretty nice-looking story, even though John Byrne draws it. It's actually a very nice later middle period art job from John Byrne. So, knocks the tally man out. There's some big green hands coming out of the wall. That's Corrosive Man. Yeah, there's not someone who shows up a lot. Who's this? The Demon Mahakala. I imagine he showed up at some point. Yeah, this is fun stuff. You can see this is Urano guy. He's got some energy to him. Fun. And we're on Kitson. Like I say, it's not like he didn't draw a very decent looking Batman. I think he worked better on Superman, frankly, or the sci-fi stuff. He did some of the Legion book, not the Legion of Superheroes, but the LEGION acronym. And so he runs into all these schmucks in a dark room. There's Batman smiling because... Oh, and there's Joe Public from the Shadow of the Bat crossover with Bloodlines, which we read on the TikTok a while back. Oh my God, we're almost done with Bloodlines. Oh my God, we're almost done with Bloodlines. Why did I ever decide to do that? It has sapped my will to live every Wednesday. You might have noticed if you follow the TikTok, those go up really super late because I procrastinated till it's the last thing I do that night. My goodness, even the ones that are decent are still tedious. This guy's story, it was drawn by Trevor Von Eden. Yes, Trevor Von Eden. It's pretty remarkable that it's very unmemorable story otherwise. Here's a female vigilante. She was, I think, really going after, I want to say, violence against women, which is, a great hook for in any kind of urban vigilante character. There's the Robin, who wasn't really a presence in the book, I don't think. Yeah, that's a nice spread. Oh boy. And here we go. Chris Claremont writing Sovereign 7. Of course, who else would be writing Sovereign 7 with Dwayne Turner still on it with Chris Ivey. That team was pretty inseparable at this period. I'm writing something on Dwayne Turner that's going to hit the stands at some point. I'm sure I'll tell you all about it. It's been a long time gestating. Colliding with events unfolding in Contagion from the pages of Batman. Oh, so it's a crossover with what was going on in the Batman books at the time, which was they were really, really hitting the crossovers big time, and they had a couple that were themed around a virus. I think that this one was Contagion. We've actually looked at chapters from Contagion on this, I think. And then I want to say that led directly into Legacy, which was the one right after, but I'm not completely certain. I'll be honest with you. I did not like the crossovers they were doing. The Batman books doing crossovers meant that I maybe wasn't going to pick up the Batman books that month during this period. And sometimes I did, just because I was buying Batman at the time, but I don't remember them fondly. Now, No Man's Land, I was all in. I enjoyed that every week. That was one that kept me on the edge of my seat. And as I've said before in the past, it has one of the worst endings of any story, of any large crossover that I've ever seen. Turned me off the Batman books for years. I didn't buy a Batman book for years after being completely 100% on board for No Man's Land because the story ended so poorly, I thought. That's a nice Brian Bolland Batman piece with Mr. Zsasz, my all-time least favorite Batman villain. I hate this guy. Hate him. He is a terrible villain. If ever there's a villain you don't want to see in a comic book, for me, as this Mr. Zsasz guy, he can just die in a falling elevator accident, along with Morbius. Geoforce. That'd be a good story. All right, watch this space. So it's this, that, and the other thing, talking about Kingdom Come. The big book, they're pushing the big book series that Paradox is pushing out. The big book's almost completely forgotten, but one of the more interesting publishing projects anywhere in the industry during the 90s. The full history of them has yet to be written, I think. But they were, if you ever see any of them in the used bookstore, they've never been reprinted. They could be. I don't think there's any reason they couldn't be. But they were just thick trades, trade paperback anthologies of new strips by really excellent artists who probably, some of them wouldn't be caught dead working on the regular Marvel line, but DC line, sorry. But it was just short stories on topics like conspiracies, weirdos, urban legends. There's one on death. This one book on freaks. It's a best of Barnum's Menagerie meets the strangest but true stories of folks like the Elephant Man. See? Interesting stuff from cartoonists who you wouldn't have seen drawing a Batman book. And the line died with Paradox Press, and they're just never seen again. They could probably stand to reprint them. I don't know, maybe not the Freaks one, but even that is Gay and Wilson, Rick Geary. Where else were you going to see Gay and Wilson working for DC in the 90s? All right, so who's doing, this looks like Buckingham. Was that Buckingham? He wasn't listed on there. Oh, Dave Taylor. Must have been Dave Taylor. Okay, next issue, The Nightmare Man. And here's an ad for a Catwoman trade, and oh, it looks like a trade of some Superman and Batman Elseworlds. There were some decent Elseworlds published in the mid-90s. I don't recognize any of the names. Part 2 of our soon-to-be classic story is Batman learns more about narcosis. It's by Alan Grant, Dave Taylor, and John Dell. So, yeah, I guess that's building off of this. Okay, how we doing here? Oh, we're well into it. Issue 3.9 of Smile. This is the August 2001 issue from TokyoPop. One of, I think, only a handful of noble attempts that were made at a shoujo anthology, I want to say. So this lasted a few years. This was an excellent, I think, attempt at an anthology for this kind of material. I've been picking up a few issues here and there when I find them, and it's just got a really interesting mix, a decent vibe of material that certainly wasn't getting any play necessarily from the manga that was selling in the direct market. There just wasn't that much of a demand for shoujo stuff in the 90s. There just was not. You go back and look at what manga did sell, and you see a lot of boys franchises, and they have certainly built up a completely new audience for this material in this country in the last couple decades. It didn't necessarily have a future in the direct market, and once it actually started selling in the regular bookstores, which is something that by August 2001, it's not really like quite where it's going to be, but already it's coming. There's rumbling. You're seeing the stuff in real bookstores. So that market takes off, and they abandon the direct market. So things like, a direct market version of a thick anthology, like Dark Horse, lasted, I think, a good few years with Super Manga Blast, but after a certain point, there just wasn't any desire for that kind of package, or to sell that kind of package in the direct market. I keep banging this drum, hoping that someone is going to hear me. The market is wide open if you want to find some manga material that would be flattered by the monthly serialization. I think there's room for that in the direct market now that maybe there wasn't 10 years ago. But, clearly, it's not like TokyoPop, they're back, and Viz. It's not like they've abandoned the direct market. They still do free comic book day releases. But the direct market is like a little pond in the backyard compared to the rest of their publishing slate. And, to be fair, Viz Comics was once a scrappy independent comic book publisher making money on the direct market, just like the rest of them. And now they have 4 or 5 times as much wall space at the Barnes & Noble as Marvel and DC. So, like I say, TokyoPop, my understanding, keep in mind, I don't know this part of the industry as well as I know some other parts of the industry, but my understanding was that TokyoPop 1.0 was a problematic company in a lot of ways. And it's back. It was gone for a while. I don't know anything about whether the new version is different, better, worse. I know it seemed like them and Viz were real neck and neck in the early 2000s and really colonizing that new market, putting material in bookstores, really building a market for it. But, like I say, TokyoPop, they had problems on the way to the dance. So, yeah, this only has 3 features. You got a Sailor Moon serial, like 53 pages of Sailor Moon up front, which that's as big a draw as you're going to find in the shoujo market in the early 2000s. Peach Girl by Miwa Ueda, translation by Dan Pappy, I should say the translation for Sailor Moon, Mika Onishi. And the third feature is Juline by Narumi, Kakinouchi, and Dan Pappy. I don't know. I think I've heard of Peach Girl. Never heard of the Juline strip. Like I say, I'm underread in shoujo. I'm underread in a lot of manga. I'm trying to catch up. The problem is I tend to like the stuff where people are hitting things. I know, that's really predictable. The ones where people are hitting things, possibly using, ancient martial arts prowess or flying a spaceship. So, Sailor Moon. I got some Sailor Moon. I got a couple Sailor Moon volumes over in the corner there. Very interesting. If you go back and actually read the comics, it definitely has a magnetic appeal. You can see why every part of this franchise hit as hard as it did, because it's not just that it's a, real pitch perfect iteration of a very popular genre. It certainly wasn't the first or the last magical girl. I'm watching a Precure series now, which pretty much just takes the, Sailor Moon template and shaves every hard edge off it. And that's the interesting thing about Sailor Moon is there actually is kind of a hard edge to some of the material, certainly when they get into the mythos with the lore and the kingdom 1,000 years in the future that everything is prophesized for. It's definitely an interesting saga, and then you go back and read it and you see like, oh yeah, even flipped like this, because this magazine is flipped to read left from right, even flipped like this just has a tremendous energy to it. It draws you right along, and it's interesting. It's interesting almost at every step. There's at least on one image, a page that will completely arrest your attention. Sailor Scout powers are for protecting peace and justice, and for those we love. Oh, there's Tuxedo Moon. Rather useless individual in any incarnation, I think. The thing with that meme, the Tuxedo Moon meme, where he says, my work here is done, and then you cut to Usagi saying, well, you didn't do anything. And it's true, that is his character. He never does anything. You think, well, oh, he should get up to lots of fun cat burglar adventures. Not that you would know. Oh man, that's striking. That is striking. Using all this white space like that? Sailor Moon or Dave Sim? That is striking. Oh wow, there you go. Now that's how you introduce a character. Whoosh, boom, there you go. Strong stars, losers, and sailor scouts. Everything in the galaxy is born here. A place where stars are born. There is hope left in the universe. It can be found here. And you see, there's just this wonderful abstract designs, shapes. Really. It's kind of amazing what this woman, Naoko Takeuchi, gets away with. Because if you actually look at her storytelling, there's a lot of her vamping. And yet, man, this stuff sings. It really does. If you go to the store, they've actually got a nice set of, I think it's 7 omnibus tankobon of all the Sailor Moon stuff. You can go through one of those in an hour. It reads like greased lightning. And you see, boom, there you go. Interesting stuff. Oh man, this is great stuff. This is definitely there's definitely a reason why this hit. It's not just that it's got a kind of weird mythos and indelible characters, but it looks great. And then you look at her storytelling principles and you see, oh, it's kind of like Rob Liefeld. Someone who really knows how to use isolated images and very simple, but not ineffective, directional tricks just to get your eye going exactly where she wants it to, so that it reads so smooth. Chibi Moon, no! No, yes, yeah, I'm sorry. The first time I encountered Chibi Moon, I swear, it's such a Chris Claremont thing. Like, it is your daughter from the future. Only it's not a dystopian future. It's a utopia. And you better not screw up or you're going to destroy everything. See? It has really interesting edges. You know, there's a Sailor Scout whose job is to bring about the end of the world. That's their job. Why? Why? That doesn't seem like a very useful Sailor Scout ability, but what do I know? And that is definitely more interesting than the Precure. Look at this, though. Look at all these weird black and white effects she's getting. Definitely taking, the printing quality into mind, how this is going to look. And it looks fantastic. The strongest light in the galaxy will finally be mine. I am chaos. And then after a while, they're just fighting, the biggest cosmic scale threats. I am the one who failed to become a star, and the ruler of the dark stars within this cordon. The one who received the beautiful power of the light. You have destroyed the evil stars. See? This is cosmic. This is as cosmic as it gets. And if you've just seen some of the episodes of the TV show, maybe you're not going to get that angle, but certainly when you get here, this is some far out stuff. Highly recommended. Sailor Moon is highly recommended in any incarnation. It definitely moves the needle. If you can just get past the fact that the protagonist is just about the most annoying character in the history of fiction. And she's kind of supposed to be. That is her character trait. Is that she would be absolutely awful to be around if she weren't destined to be the most important girl in the history of the human race. Chaos in the cordon. Chibi Chibi? Chaos has become one with the cordon. And to destroy chaos, you must destroy the cordon as well. This is like just straight up late period Jim Starlin. As long as the stars are born, the battle will never end. As long as the stars are born, this is the galaxy's wish. Oh, man. Yeah, and there, as I was saying, the death sickle, that's... Sailor Neptune. Sailor Neptune, right? I want to say, well, Sailor Pluto or Sailor Neptune. I can't remember which one. Doesn't want to tell us. But look at that. This is the scythe that, when swung, will end the world. Is it my turn to swing the sickle of death? Look at that. Like, that's why ultimately, yeah, I understand. I'm not a big Dragon Ball person, but I understand the logic that Goku is obviously the most powerful warrior. I understand that, but at the same time, if the battle wasn't going Sailor Moon's way, she would just call her friend who can destroy the planet. That's a good friend to have on speed dial right there. At the end of a battle, there is hope for the future. I will make a future for my friends. But ultimately, it all goes back, even with all this cosmic, dark stuff, it all goes back to this ultimately very appealing fantasy of just, dressing in a pretty sailor costume and flying around, saving everyone. As long as stars shine, we are okay. We won't lose. I don't know if the American comics industry has ever produced anything designed to drill down into the brains of little girls as well as something like Sailor Moon. And you can just see, you know, for a 7 or 8-year-old to come across this, yeah, this would change your life. This is far out. Wow, look at that. That is just great stuff right there. That is fantastic. Genuinely fantastic stuff. Sailor Moon Super S. Yep, see, they already got the tankobons. In the Dead Moon Circus, there are scarier things than clowns. All right, so Peach Girl. With friends like these, beauty's skin deep. Everyone knows it, but few people really get it. Momo has a problem. She is forever being misunderstood. In the world where she lives, only bad girls have tans, and Momo tans too easily. Most people take one look at her and assume that she is, at best, a bubble-headed beach bunny, at worst, a slut. In a world like this, it's difficult for Momo to be happy with herself. She needs a friend. Unfortunately, she's got Sei. Sei says she's a friend, but she doesn't act like it. First, Sei steals Momo's favorite bag. Then she sets her sights on Toji, the boy Momo likes. With friends like these, who needs enemies? See, this is fun. This is fun stuff. So basically, she has to keep her sunscreen on hand, or she looks like she spent all afternoon in a tanning booth. That's not that bad of a hook. Oh, there's a cute baseball player. I heard that Toji doesn't like girls with dark skin. It was all because of that I became this sunblock junkie. So, tight focus on high school dramedy, hijinks. I like this. You're reading this one for, you know, this artist. So who's this woman again? Miwa Ueda. You're reading this because she is really good at facial expressions here. And that's basically what the whole story is built around, is just these really memorable character faces, expressions here. Oh, look at this. Look at this sequence, this body language and this hair. Oh, man. That is some excellent drawing right there. And that is a page that you draw when you were trying to make up for lost time. I've seen the signs before. But my goodness, it still looks striking, even though this is definitely a Jay Lee type of page, if ever you saw one. Oh, man. And you see why. You flip the page, this really sparse page, and then this gorgeous illustration there. Look at this. Excellent stuff, excellent stuff. And more Sailor Moon. Well, I mean, like I say, Sailor Moon wasn't available in every market in the 90s, but pretty much everyone who saw Sailor Moon in the 90s became a Sailor Moon fan. Oh, and here's your scorecard. I know nothing going on here. There was in the earlier run, there was one of the features was Clamp. I was hoping this one had some Clamp in it. Clamp is very interesting. You probably already know that. I'm late getting to the party there. What is this? Oh, so is this like a martial arts twist here? Interesting. Interesting. Kind of like I know they're not taking this influence, but it reminds me of something like Tony Salmon's in terms of just how much work is put into this very spare gestural line work to outline, physiology and gesture. I mean, look at how few drawings are on the page here. Who's this person again? Narumi Kakinouchi. Look at how spare the drawing is, and yet every line is perfect. You can't draw a line, a single line like that, unless you've drawn 100 lines under it. This is excellent stuff. And they used to just, how much was this? $4.99. Man, I wish they still put out anthologies. I would much prefer to read some of this material still in periodical format. If they still put out any of this stuff in periodical or anthology, floppy pamphlet, I'd be all over it. Oh, man. Oh, my goodness. Am I entering my shoujo era? I don't know. Oh, they're doing the old trick with the I associate it with Evan Dorkin, although I don't think he originated it. But if you have plaid or another type of check pattern, you just put the pattern as an overlay over the lines of whatever the garment is, and it always looks. It's a real bold-looking time saver. Never fails to please. Man, just look at this. Barely any lines on the page. Now this is a work that I can't imagine seeing in color. Sometimes I think, some manga would benefit from coloring, but I can't imagine a color doing anything to this, for this. And it's enough to make you think that we need to publish more comics in black and white as well, because it tests the artist in different ways. Now, of course, most comic book companies aren't actually looking at their publishing slate with the express purpose of testing their artists, but, that's why they don't give me any positions of power in the comic book industry. But look at this, look at this. Just a few lines, all that hair. This is excellent. Well, nice panty shot there. What can I say? Still, I'd read more of this artist's work any day of the week. It's almost shockingly minimal. And yet, look how well it reads. Like I say, Jay Lee, he's the referent there, I think. For someone in America who's using a similar approach to sparse, minimal compositional elements. And there's some nice environmental detail. Welcome to the House of the Black Pearl. Before you use the Hall of Water. Prior to your entering, allow me to inform you of the rules for the evening. Number 1, if you fall into the water, you lose. Miracle Girls, not your typical teenagers. Momo's Conversation Corner. Oh, so here's some Japanese vocabulary words. Kebai, too much makeup. Sayaku, it was so bad. Gyaru, okay, a guy who looks like a girl. Saibaba, short for cyber middle-aged woman. This is used to describe a middle-aged woman who is computer whiz and internet illiterate. Oh, see, that was a typo over there. I thought, like, my mother was just about the only one. I'm sure there were more. There was a period where she knew more, much more about computers than I did when I was growing up. KT, slang for cell phone. Stabaru, to go to Starbucks. Guroi, short from grotesque. Kenchiki, slang for Kentucky Fried Chicken. My God. Kentucky Fried Chicken is more popular just about everywhere else other than America. It's decently popular over here, but we don't consider it the best chicken by any means. But it's really big everywhere else. Fan letters. They don't have a lot of fan art. Oh, they do. There's a whole page of it. That's definitely something I associate with the manga books from this period. They even had fan art in the back of the Gunsmith Cats books. Saint Tati. It's showtime as the world's most lovable thief comes to steal your heart. All right. How much more time we got? Is that all our time for today? I think that might be all our time for today. I wanted to get through more than 3 books, but what are you going to do? All right. So I already pointed out at the beginning of the show, if you like the show, if you like what I do, check out the Patreon. That's how you can show your support for any of my videos or any of my writing for that matter. Please tell everyone you know about the show. Spread the word. Get everyone watching it. I do daily comic book reviews on TikTok and Instagram. I post the same reviews to both platforms. I got a podcast with Claire Napier. It's called Udder Madness. We talk about Top Cow comics. That's Mark Silvestri, Michael Turner, Witchblade, The Darkness, Cyberforce, all that good stuff. We're available on YouTube. We're on Patreon. We're on Spotify. We're on SoundCloud. What else? Oh, I'm usually got something on the front page of the Comics Journal website. I should have a review up there in the next couple of days. Just did a big Frank Miller piece on both of his Ronins. What else? I think that's just about everything. Please have a wonderful day. Take care of yourself. Take care of the world. It's rough out there lately, so just please be good to yourself. Be kind to yourself and be kind to the rest of the world. Be kind to animals and small children. Have a wonderful day.